Okay, Dad.
Yeah.
Hi. Okay, so I have many more questions for you.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention last time was that my father's family came over during the Civil War.
Oh my gosh.
That goes back a long time.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's amazing. So you were able to trace the name all the way back.
back to Latvia.
Oh, to Latvia.
Yeah,
Okay, amazing. So
that's
we
as
have,
far as we could go, right?
you mentioned to me last time when the name was changed from Ginsburg to Raymond.
Right.
You said the other cousins knew. So do we have other family that were
Yeah,
in the same
I
book?
have an uncle. I don't even know if he's still alive. Richard. Last I knew, they were living down in Texas.
Your uncle.
My uncle.
Well, you just turned 80.
Right.
So I doubt
doubt if
he's
he's very
still
much
alive.
alive.
But we have family in Texas somewhere then.
Somewhere, yeah, we have
And
cousins
would
down
they
there.
be under the name Raymond then?
Some would, I don't know about the girls, but the boys would be.
Or their grandchildren?
Right.
Probably, right?
Right.
Okay. So there are other, you said you came across pictures you wanted to show me.
I have 2 boxes of pictures, right? Which I'll give you before you leave. I'll make sure you take them with you.
Okay.
So I
And
want you to have them, and Nikki has no place to keep them.
okay, so Nikki, I will
Next
share
time
them
she
with
comes,
you.
right. Right.
I'll scan them, make them digital. And
A
you,
lot of pictures there.
oh, good, good. Now are these from West Hartford?
Some go back to Lincoln, Nebraska, when my father was stationed during World War II. His first station was in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay, so let's pause there. Lincoln, Nebraska, place
And-
I have never been.
Right. I was about
middle-
3 years old.
And now your dad was a dentist,
Right.
joined which branch of the military?
The Army.
Joined the Army as an Army dentist.
Right.
And what war are we talking?
World War II.
World War II.
Right.
And they sent him to Lincoln, Nebraska.
And then they sent him to Guam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's where he ended his career in the military. He came back to the States. They were in Florida.
Oh, now did they move to Florida or was he just stationed
He was
in
stationed
Florida?
in Florida.
Okay.
And my mother didn't want to stay there.
Unusual for a
Yeah.
East Coast Jewish
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah, well, she was young then.
Ah, that's why.
And so they moved to Hartford.
Okay, so for anyone wondering, the heavy breathing down here is this beautiful creature, Rocky. I was petting the whole last interview and you don't see him, just my
Right.
arm moving. Okay, so didn't want to stay in Florida and they knew grandma.
So he
knew-
went into the Army Reserve, and when he died at age 47, which is very young, he was a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve, and he was in papers were in for promotion to full colonel. He would have been the highest ranking
Oh
dentist
my God.
in the Army Reserve had he not died.
So your father, my grandfather, not
Right.
only was very talented scientifically,
Right.
amazing dentist, high ranking in the Army, but
Also a great musician.
also a great musician.
He had a great
So-
singing voice. He could play just about any instrument. I remember as a little boy, we'd go down to the theater that doesn't exist anymore in Hartford, Connecticut, called the Allen Theater. It was taken down when they built the Civic Center downtown Hartford. And he was friends with the manager because he had gone to school with him. And he would play the old organ left over from the vaudeville days,
Oh my goodness.
you know, with 3 rows of keys and stops and pedals and everything else. And I remember he would start to play and he'd stop and one of the pipes wasn't quite right. So he'd go up and adjust them.
Oh my
And he
goodness.
taught, this is all self-taught.
Wow. And this sound would go through the whole theater, yes?
right.
Oh, amazing. It must have been a phenomenal
So
sound.
before the movies ever started, he'd be there Sunday mornings and play it. You know, without you, if you don't play it, they go way out of tune and way out of whack, you know. So
Yeah.
they were happy to have him come in and do that.
Hmm.
And he was a great photographer as well.
Very, very talented. Passed away
Yeah.
far too
Far too young.
soon. Mm-hmm. And now your brother, my Uncle Mel, inherited that talent for
Well,
music, right?
I got just a little bit.
You got a little, I got a little bit.
Yeah. Jessica, thank God,
Got the voice.
got the voice and the music talent.
And Victoria
Has
is an
some of it, yeah,
accomplished
absolutely.
with her string instruments.
right.
Yes, yeah. So
My
talent's
father
there.
earned his way through college. He went to Temple. He earned his way playing the banjo. In Philadelphia, the banjo is a big deal.
Oh, so Temple University in Philadelphia.
Right.
And did he do his undergrad there as well?
Yes, he did.
And then did he go to, he went to dental school
Right
there.
there, yes.
And that's where he met your mom.
Met my mom.
Perfect.
And nice guy that he was, he invited her to a Christmas party, except he couldn't go home because he didn't speak to his father at that time.
Okay.
Because my grandfather, your great grandfather,
Mhm.
went to University of Pennsylvania. And when my father decided he'd do his own thing, they didn't talk for 20 years.
Do its own thing by going to Temple University.
By
Of course, the University of Pennsylvania.
Right.
Oh my gosh. And they didn't talk for 20
So
years.
my father had to earn his way playing the banjo and had no home to go to over Christmas vacation.
Oh my goodness.
So they ended up eloping into Media, Pennsylvania.
Where, say it again, where in Pennsylvania?
Media. It's a little
Media.
town outside of Philadelphia.
I had not heard of that one.
Right. It's a small town, still a small
And they
town.
eloped.
They eloped.
I'm slow on this one. You just said
Yeah,
they eloped. Oh my gosh. I did not know this story. I do know a cute story though, that back when your mom was still young and vibrant, I remember her telling me she was engaged to someone else, or supposed to not engage. She was like promised or dating there was sort of arranged Israeli boy or man that her parents wanted her to marry, but she met your dad.
Her father died when she was very young.
I did not know
So it's
that.
just my grandmother who lives in originally New York City, then moved to Philadelphia, and she worked at a chain of department stores called Gimbel's.
I remember
It
Gimbel's.
It doesn't exist.
No, in a long time.
But yeah, she worked there for many, many years. And she owned a little row house on North 10th Street in Philadelphia. Today, that neighborhood is a disaster. It's a shame. It was a nice little house.
Was that the row home that Gladys
Right.
passed away in?
No, similar.
No, similar to it. Okay.
Right. In Philadelphia, they have the attached house that, they call them row houses.
Yes.
And they're all attached like duplexes would be,
Mhm.
And they all comply with fire codes there
No.
in town.
No.
I remember going down, I was a little boy, going down to the basement. They had coal chutes down there. It shows you how old they were.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And I wish I had what she had saved down there. She had all the original Saturday Evening Post magazines.
Wow.
Those
Okay.
covers were worth a fortune.
So I have a feeling my
Yeah.
daughters, your granddaughters, do not know about the Saturday Evening Post.
Right.
Tell us, what were these magazines?
Those was one of the best-selling magazines in its day. And Norman Rockwell was the artist. They almost always used on the cover.
Very famous
Very
Norman
famous,
Rockwell
right.
covers that I think somewhere we have a picture of one of them.
Right.
Right. The
Right.
doctor's office.
And he was very, very good at depicting Americana,
Mhm.
American life, and the mores of its time. And it was very fascinating as a little kid. So,
And he had a whole collection, but they went away with
That
the row home, huh?
right.
So that brings me to another interesting story,
Yeah.
because I remember my great aunt Gladys was your mother's older sister.
Right.
They did not get along.
Not very well.
Not
no.
very well. I remember grandma telling me that she was just a very mean older sister.
Yeah.
And when what was I? Maybe 19, 20 years old. Gladys passed away.
Right. We all went down.
And we went down, and what
Different.
did we find in Philadelphia?
Her row house was a disaster.
Exactly. Frozen
She
in
never spent a
time.
nickel.
No.
Nor did her husband, Morris Kaplan.
And
We always called him Cappy.
Cappy had been a doctor.
He was a doctor. And he also worked, besides private practice, he also worked for the school district in
Okay.
Philadelphia
That's an interest as a doctor.
as a doctor.
Oh, interesting.
And they never spent a nickel in the place. The pipes were not working upstairs. For her to take a bath, I mean, even in the later years, she had to carry a bucket of water up until she filled the tub up.
It was quite frightening.
Yeah, it was very frightening.
Do you remember the basement was Cappy's office?
Right.
And she'd kept it. He passed away in 1972, and she'd kept it exactly like 1972. There were
Like
ashtrays.
a time
It
stopped.
Yes.
Right then and
He
there. That
passed
was
away. There was ashtrays in the waiting area to see the doctor.
Yeah.
Say hello,
But back in the 70s, that was common with doctors'
It's
offices.
hard today to think about smoking in the doctor's waiting
Yeah,
room.
most places you can't smoke anywhere today.
Nor would you want to.
No, right, right.
Yes. So
But back then, that was the big deal.
yeah, so
Everyone smoked.
Gladys actually had never gone out of the mindset from the depression, which I
No.
guess was relatively common from people at
That
that
was very
time.
traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and anyone, if you ever met anyone now, my grandchildren, hopefully great grandchildren will see this. When you live through something that's traumatic and wondering if you're gonna be able to eat that night, never mind the next day,
Mm.
that stays with you throughout your life. In Wall Street, men were jumping out of windows, committing suicide. They lost everything. It was a terrible time.
Mm. And Gladys and Cappy never
They survived through that.
they survived through it, never mentally overcame that
No.
to the point. I remember she'd buy dented canned goods, I found
Right.
out.
Yeah.
Right. And because you could, at the time, they were like 25 cents, or a
Right.
regular can was 50 cents or 75 cents.
Right.
Gosh, and that was in the 80s,
Right.
early 90s, right?
Yeah.
This happened. And to save money, because she was so afraid of not having money
right.
again.
That scarred her mentally for
Yeah.
life.
No, I did meet Gladys once in 1993. I was touring with the Ice Capades and we played Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and I invited her to come. And she did not want to be out at night. She was a cute little old Jewish lady, did not want to be out in Philadelphia at nighttime, which is understandable. So she came and met me in the lobby of my hotel during the day, and she offered me a piece of candy, and she was absolutely adorable. She was a delight. And it surprised me to hear that, because I
Yeah.
pictured somebody with a lot of mental health issues. which
Otherwise, she was okay.
did,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
I remember when I was 16 and got my driver's license in Connecticut, in Hartford.
okay.
I took a little Rambler American and drove down to Philadelphia.
What was a Rambler American?
That's a very small, little, tiny, inexpensive car.
And I didn't know they had small cars then, because
Yeah,
I
they
think of
did.
those big boats that everyone drove.
It's probably what we call normal size.
Size now,
Yeah.
yes.
But I drove to Philadelphia, and that was quite an experience as a brand new driver getting onto Roosevelt Boulevard in Philadelphia. I forget how many lanes of traffic in there. It's like 12 or 16 lanes.
Then in the 60s.
Back then, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, back then. And they had signs and a lot of circles, rotaries, whatever you want to call them. It would say things like #1 accident spot. Made a new driver feel really comfortable.
Now
As
they
you
don't
can
put
imagine.
those signs up. They need to,
Yeah,
but
They should.
they should. Slow down warning. But...
Right. Get rid of those circles. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the ones we have here in Las Vegas.
For no reason whatsoever.
No.
It
just-
looks pretty. That's all.
Yeah. Somebody took one of those compasses and
Yeah.
drew
Made a
circles on
circle.
a
This
paper.
looks
Yeah.
very pretty here.
But going back to Gladys, so
Yeah.
yeah, it was quite devastating. When she did pass away, she had agoraphobia. So she didn't leave home for a very long time.
And she also, in the end, had a bad heart.
Fair enough. That makes sense, right?
Right.
But I remember her front room on the upstairs of that row home
Yeah.
nobody must have been in there since the 1950s, I'm guessing.
No,
or
it hadn't
60s.
changed.
And she had all these clothes from the 50s lined up on hangers, perfectly wrapped. She became very OCD. She
Right.
had shopping bags, like grocery bags, folded and put away.
And all
in
the hats
drawers.
from the 30s and 40s and 50s.
I kept some of the hats. I have the
I'm
hats.
glad you did.
Thanks. They're quite magnificent, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
not all in the best condition, but I have a handful of those hats. So, yeah, but so it's very sad life. And, but your mom said even prior to that, she was never, do you know what year your mom was born?
1916.
1916. Okay. So they had a childhood prior to
Right.
the depression hitting. And, unfortunately,
But they didn't, her father, my grandfather dying very young,
That makes sense. Yeah.
that they didn't have a lot ever.
Okay.
So it was kind of hand to mouth.
And I didn't know that. Okay.
I'm sure the department stores didn't pay big money.
So that's how your mom was in Philadelphia.
Right.
Your dad, was he from there originally? He wanted to go to
From
school
Hartford
there.
originally. He wanted
Okay.
to go to Philly, but he was going to do his own thing and go to Temple instead of University of
But he still went to Philadelphia.
They went to
That's
Philadelphia.
quite
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Amazing. Imagine being a rebel by going to a different Ivy League level
Yeah.
university.
Yeah. That's what he did.
So they met at a dance. He stayed back that
Right.
Christmas
Right.
for the holiday season. He didn't want
He
to,
had no place to go.
no place to go. 'cause he
Everyone
wasn't-
else did. He was the only guy left there in the fraternity, the Alpha Omega fraternity. the dental fraternity that he belonged to.
Okay. And now was grandma obviously still there? So that, did they start dating at that time then?
Yeah,
And the rest is
the
history.
rest is history.
And she told her mom, I'm not marrying the Israeli gentleman. I'm in love with David.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Amazing. And here we are today. So I'm going to pause this for a moment and we will tell more stories.
Okay.